My daughter stood in the center of her brand new kitchen, adjusting the wine glasses on the marble counter for the 5th time. Her heels made sharp sounds against the floor that I paid for, but she pretended belonged to someone else. She did not look at me when she finally spoke. Before we proceed, thank you for watching Granny's narrative. Please subscribe and tell where you are watching from in the comment. Mother, please do not say anything tonight that will make me look bad. No stories about how we used to live or where you worked. These people are important to my career. They do not need to know about any of that. I stood near the doorway holding the cloth napkins she handed me to fold. The way she said mother felt cold like winter wine through a cracked window. Not warm like when she was small and would run to me crying mama mama after a bad dream. And mother, she added without turning around. If anyone asks who you are, just tell them you are a distant relative visiting for a few days. Do not tell them you are my mother, please. The words did not hurt as much as I thought they would. Maybe because I had been preparing for this moment for years. The moment when my own daughter would pretend I never existed. The moment she would erase me like a mistake in a notebook. I understand, I said quietly. My voice stayed calm, but something inside me felt heavy like a stone sinking in deep water. She seemed satisfied with my answer and went back to moving a vase of white flowers from one side of the table to the other. Her husband Daniel walked past me carrying expensive bottles of wine. They had been married 9 years and I still was not sure he knew my name. He called me mom, but the way you call someone mom when you do not really mean it. When my daughter spoke to the catering staff, her whole voice changed. Suddenly she sounded sweet and confident. I used to call it her work voice. The voice she used when she wanted people to think she was someone special. She turned to me one more time and whispered, "Mother, please do not wear that old sweater tonight. I left a black jacket for you upstairs. Try not to look so plain. These people notice everything." "I will try to blend into the walls," I said with a small smile. She looked relieved, like she just solved a big problem. I watched her standing there at 37 years old in her expensive green dress. I wondered if she remembered the nights I went to bed hungry so she could eat. Or the winter I sold my only coat so she could have piano lessons. But I said nothing. The truth does not always win in a house built on lies. The sun was setting behind the tall trees when the first guests started arriving. Men in dark suits. Women with loud laughter that did not sound real. My daughter's world smelled like perfume and fakeness. I stayed near the hallway where no one could see me, just like she wanted. At one point she walked past me and said through her teeth, "Mother, please stand up straight. You look tired. People will think something is wrong with you." I nodded again. My back was bent from 30 years of working in factories. Not from being tired. But there was no point explaining. To her, being poor was like being sick. Something shameful. Something to hide. A young man from the catering company dropped a fork and I bent down to help him pick it up. "Oh no ma'am, I got it," he said, looking surprised. His kindness felt strange in this house full of fake smiles. My daughter saw me and frowned like I had done something terrible. "Mother," she said, smiling, but her eyes were angry. "The guests will be here any minute. Go to your room downstairs and rest. I will call you if I need you." "If I need you." I looked toward the window and saw more cars pulling up. People getting out dressed in expensive clothes. All smiles and bright voices. "I will be quiet," I whispered. She was already gone, walking toward the door. Her laugh echoing down the hallway. It sounded practiced, like she had rehearsed it in front of a mirror. I went to my small room on the ground floor. It used to be a storage closet before they cleared it out and put a bed in there for me. From my room I could hear everything. The party starting upstairs. Glasses clinking. Music playing. Fake compliments floating through the air like dust. I sat on the edge of my narrow bed, smoothing down the old sweater she hated so much. I remembered when she was 10 years old. She made me a card for Mother's Day that said, "Someday I will buy you a big house, Mama. You will never have to work again." Now she had the house. The big beautiful house with ocean views and fancy counters. But I was not allowed to exist inside it. Not really. I was just supposed to stay hidden like an old photograph you keep in a drawer but never show anyone. I thought about saying something. about reminding her who paid for the walls she was standing under. But words would only make her angry. And I had spent too many years already trying not to make her angry. I looked at myself in the small mirror hanging on the wall. My face was full of wrinkles like pages in a book that had been read too many times. I whispered to my reflection, "You are still here, Helen. Do not forget that." Outside I could hear my daughter's laughter getting louder. Inside my silence started turning into something else. Something harder than sadness. There was a time I dreamed about growing old in a house full of warmth, baking bread in a sunny kitchen, teaching my granddaughter how to sew, maybe humming old songs while watching the sunrise through the window. That is not what happened. I live on the first floor now, right next to the laundry room. It used to be a storage space until my daughter had it renovated. She said renovated like it was something fancy. Really, she just put in a small bed, a nightstand, and a lamp that flickers when someone uses the microwave upstairs. My room does not have a door, just a curtain. She said doors make guests feel uncomfortable. I do not know what that means, but I did not argue. I hear them upstairs all the time, laughing over dinner, clinking their wine glasses, playing soft music, talking about money and vacation homes and things I never learned to talk about. One time I tried to go upstairs during one of their dinner parties. My granddaughter Emma had left her sweater in my room, and I knew she would be cold. I thought nothing of it. Just a grandmother bringing a sweater to her grandchild. But when I stepped into the hallway, my daughter nearly dropped her glass when she saw me. She grabbed my arm so hard I thought she would leave a bruise. "Mother, what are you doing up here?" she hissed. "Are you trying to ruin my evening? Do you want to embarrass me in front of my friends?" I blinked confused. "Emma's sweater," I said quietly. "She is cold." "I will get it," she snapped. "You need to go back downstairs. You know you are not supposed to be seen when I have guests over." That night I sat in the dark with the sweater folded in my lap. The house, this beautiful 3-bedroom house with views of the ocean and expensive stone counters, was bought with my money. Every single dollar. I worked for years. Double shifts at the fish processing plant. Then cleaning offices at night when my back hurt so bad I could barely stand. I saved everything in an old envelope hidden under my mattress. I never touched that money, even when my hands ached so much from working that I could not hold a fork properly. I bought this house for her. To give her stability. To give her a safe place to raise her family. A place she could call home. But now my daughter tells everyone she is the owner. On her social media she posts pictures and calls it her forever home. A reward for my hard work and dedication, she writes. She never mentions my name. Not once. When the tax bill comes every year, it is still in my name. Pay it quietly. I always have. But last month I heard her talking to one of her friends on the phone. "Oh, I just cover mom's expenses," she said. "You know, food and rent and utilities. It is the least I can do since she is not working anymore." Rent. That word stung worse than any slap across the face. One morning I asked if she wanted me to make breakfast for Emma. She was running late for school and had not eaten anything. My daughter did not even look up from her phone. "No, I will order something online," she said. "Your food is too greasy for her. Kids these days need to eat healthy. You understand." I nodded and went back to my small room. I pretended I did not hear Emma whisper. "But I like Grandma's cooking. There is a note on the refrigerator now. Do not touch Vanessa's groceries. My food is kept in a small section in the back. Leftovers from 2 days ago. Some apples. Bread. But I make it work. I always have." One afternoon I was folding laundry in the garage when my daughter walked in talking on her phone. She had it on speaker. "She lives here for free but acts like I owe her something," she said to whoever was on the other end. "Honestly, I do not know how much longer I can do this. She does not even help around the house anymore." Then she stopped talking and looked at me. "Oh, do not mind me, Mother. Just talking to my therapist." I stood there frozen. A shirt half folded in my hands. "Mother," she continued. "You do realize you have been given a gift, right? Not every old person gets to stay with their children. You should be grateful. You are living here rent-free." I looked at her then. Really looked. She was wearing a blouse I had mended by hand 2 years ago. Her hair was swept up the way I used to style it for her school concerts. But the girl I raised was gone. What stood in front of me was a stranger wearing her face. "I paid for this house," I said quietly. She blinked. Then she laughed. "You helped with the down payment, sure. But everything else, the maintenance, the design, the upgrades, that is all me." "No, Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I paid for it in full. In cash. The deed is still in my name." Her face changed for just a second. But then she smiled. That smile she uses when she wants to win an argument. "Technicalities," she said, waving her hand. "Anyway, people know me as the owner. That is what matters, right?" I wanted to argue, to scream, to remind her of everything I had done. But instead I looked down at the laundry in my arms and said, "You are right. People believe what they want to believe." The only person in this house who ever really saw me was Emma. Every night after everyone went to bed, she would sneak downstairs to sit with me. We would talk about her day, about school, about her friends. "You are my favorite person in this whole house, Grandma," she whispered one night while hugging me tight. That was the night I decided I would not die in this house as a ghost. I may be old, I may be quiet, but I am not invisible. My daughter was 10 years old the last time she asked about her father. It was winter. The kind of winter that makes your bones hurt and your breath hang in the air like smoke. She came home from school crying. The other kids had teased her. They said her father left because her mother was not good enough. She looked at me that day with something new in her eyes. Something sharp. "Mama," she asked, "is it true? Did Daddy leave because of you?" I remember setting down the pot of soup I was stirring. I wanted to tell her everything. About the gambling. About the shouting. About the bruises I hid under long sleeves. About the nights I prayed he would just stay away. But I could not tell her. She was just a little girl standing in front of me, shaking. Her fingers gripping her backpack straps so tight her knuckles were white. I wanted her to have at least one parent she could love without feeling ashamed. "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "Your father is away for work. He will come home when he can." She believed me. Children believe what they need to believe. The truth was much uglier. He had gambled away our savings twice. The second time he took my wedding ring to pay off his debts. When I tried to stop him, he threw a chair across the kitchen and told me I should be grateful anyone married me at all. I still remember his face the night he packed his bags. He looked calm, like someone who had already forgiven himself for everything. After he left, the nights became quieter. But so did the house. I learned to sleep with one ear always listening. Not for danger, just for hope. I told my daughter her father would send letters. Sometimes I even wrote them myself. I studied his handwriting and copied it carefully. "Study hard, sweetheart," the fake letters said. "I am proud of you." When she turned 15, the letters stopped. She did not ask why. But I could feel her faith breaking apart piece by piece. By the time she got to college, her father's family found her. They told her their version of the truth. That I had driven him away. That I nagged too much. Never knew how to make a man feel respected. That I wasted money like water. Lies. But they came from people she wanted to impress. People who seemed successful and polished. And my daughter, always wanting to be seen as someone important, believed them. One evening during her senior year of college, she came home with a look I had never seen before. Not anger. Something colder. "You should have fought harder for him," she said. "Everyone says you were too proud. That you let your marriage die." I tried to explain. "Some fights do not heal, Vanessa. Some people are poison no matter how much you love them." She shook her head. "You always make excuses. Maybe if you had been softer, kinder, less ordinary, he would have stayed." Ordinary. That word sank into me like a knife. I was ordinary. I cooked, cleaned. I worked 3 jobs so she could go to college. I patched her torn jeans. I stayed up all night sewing her prom dress by hand. But to her, ordinary meant worthless. When she got married, she did not invite anyone from my side of the family. She told her new husband's family I was not well enough to travel. I sat at home that night watching the pictures appear online. Her in a white silk dress. smiling next to a man whose eyes reminded me too much of her father. After that she stopped calling me mom. Became mother. Said in a voice that could freeze water. She started talking about her father like he was some kind of hero. He made mistakes, she would say. But he was charming, ambitious, smart. People respected him. She never knew he once pawned her baby bracelet to pay for gambling. Or that he threatened to burn down our apartment when I refused to give him my paycheck. She never asked what I went through. She only judged the silence that kept her safe. The last time we spoke about him was 2 years ago. She had just gotten a big promotion at work. She wanted to host a dinner party and invite some of her father's old friends. To honor her roots, she said. When I told her it was a bad idea, she snapped at me. You are just jealous because you never had class. You do not understand how the world works. I stayed quiet like I always did. But then she said something that cut through everything I had left inside me. Mother, you did not know how to keep a husband. The least you can do now is not ruin my career. Do not make me clean up your mess again. I stood there holding a dish towel, staring at her. I wanted to ask, what mess? The life I gave you. The house you live in. The name you wear so proudly while pretending it came from someone else. But the words would not come out. I had swallowed them for so many years that my throat no longer knew how to release them. So I just nodded. I will not ruin anything, Vanessa. She smiled like she had won. But try not to talk about Dad at all. People do not like complicated stories. She left the kitchen, her heels tapping away the last piece of my dignity. That night I found an old photo album she had hidden in a box. The first picture was of her father holding her as a baby. She looked so happy. Her tiny hand wrapped around his finger. In the corner of the photo was my reflection. Blurry but there. Caught by accident. For years I thought silence was love. That by hiding the truth I was protecting her. But looking at that photograph I finally understood. My silence had not looked like sacrifice to her. Looked like weakness. And weakness to my daughter was the worst thing you could be. The night of the party felt colder than the wind outside. Music drifted through the house. Soft instrumental music meant to sound elegant but empty of any real feeling. The air smelled like expensive perfume and flowers that cost too much to be real. I stood in the kitchen wearing the black jacket my daughter left for me. Did not fit right. The shoulders were too tight. But I wore it anyway. Guests started arriving. Men in suits. Women with bright lipstick and laughter that sounded rehearsed. My daughter floated through the crowd like she was born to do this. Every movement seemed planned. Every smile perfectly timed. The daughter I raised was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized. I had baked a pie that afternoon. Apple and cinnamon. The recipe my grandmother taught me. Emma had begged me to make it. Grandma, everyone will love it, she said with bright eyes. So I made it. Not for the guests. Not for my daughter. But for the small hope that maybe she would taste it and remember something. Remember home. When I looked into the dining room, my daughter was giving a speech. Everyone raised their glasses as she spoke. This home, she said clearly and proudly, is the result of hard work and independence. I built it myself from nothing. I am proof that women can succeed without owing anyone anything. The room burst into applause. I stood frozen in the doorway, the pie warm in my hands. I was not expecting her to thank me, but to hear her deny me completely, to act like I never existed. It felt like something hollow opened up inside my chest. One of the guests, a woman wearing pearls, looked toward the kitchen. She smiled at me. And who is the lovely lady helping tonight? She looks like family. My daughter's smile went stiff. Oh, she said, waving her hand casually. She is someone who helped me when I first moved here. Kind woman. She still comes around sometimes to lend a hand. Polite laughter rippled through the room. For a moment I thought I misheard her. Then I saw Emma's face across the room. Confusion. Sadness. My granddaughter looked at me and mouthed, "Grandma." I smiled at her, but it felt like swallowing broken glass. I decided to stay out of sight. I went back to the kitchen and started arranging dessert plates. My hands were shaking a little, but I steadied them. I placed the pie on a serving tray and walked toward the dining room. The floor was wet from spilled wine. Before I knew it, my foot slipped. The tray crashed to the floor. The pie slid across the tile. Time seemed to slow down. The laughter stopped. For half a second there was complete silence. Then my daughter's voice cut through the air, sharp and cold. "Oh my God, Mother. I told you to stay in the back. Can you not follow simple instructions?" People gasped. Someone tried to help me up, but my daughter kept talking. "I swear you are determined to embarrass me. You cannot even walk straight. You are supposed to stay in the storage room, remember?" The word storage room made several people turn their heads. I saw Emma clutching the edge of her chair. Tears filled her eyes. A man laughed nervously, trying to break the tension. But most people just looked away, checked their phones, sipped their wine. That kind of embarrassment is too personal for strangers. Got to my feet slowly, ignoring the pain in my knee. "I'm fine," I said quietly. "No harm done." But my daughter was not finished. "You have done enough," she snapped. "Please just go back downstairs before you make this worse." I looked at her. The way her hands shook. The way her eyes darted between me and her guests. She was terrified, not of me, but of what I represented. She did not want them to see where she came from, who she came from. I picked up the pieces of the broken plate one by one and placed them on the tray. My fingers stung where the sharp edges cut my skin. But I did not stop. When I finished, I stood up straight, met her eyes, and said, "Course, forgive me." I walked out of that bright, glittering room in silence. Behind me someone whispered, "That poor old woman." In the hallway the noise from the party grew distant. Laughter starting again. Music covering the wound like a bandage too thin to help. I reached my small room and closed the curtain behind me. The smell of cinnamon and apples still hung in the air, mocking me with sweetness. I sat on my bed and looked at my hands. They were shaking, but not from age. It was something else. Quiet anger. Colder than sadness. Steadier than rage. Outside, the sound of applause erupted again. She was probably making another toast, smoothing everything over with charm and lies. For the first time in a very long time, I did not cry. I did not even sigh. I just whispered to the empty room. "So this is what shame looks like when it forgets who it belongs to." The night went on, bright and hollow, but something inside me shifted. Like an old clock starting to tick again after years of silence. I stayed in my room for the rest of the evening, listening to the sounds of forks scraping plates, voices dancing across lies. My daughter's laughter floated down the stairs, polished and empty, bouncing off the walls like a performance. I did not eat. I cleaned the small cut on my hand from the broken plate and wrapped it with a paper towel. The sting was nothing compared to what she had said in front of all those people. "You are supposed to stay in the storage room, remember?" I had been many things in my life. Wife, mother, seamstress, a factory worker. But never before had I been treated like furniture, like something you hide in a closet. At midnight, after the last guest left and silence returned to the house, I opened the drawer beside my bed. Inside was a small red notebook I had not touched in years. My savings ledger. The one I kept since I was 16 years old. Inside were notes scribbled in pencil. Fading calculations. Names of people I had lent money to and never asked to repay. Tucked inside the front cover was an old photograph. A boy with wide eyes and a crooked smile. Marcus. He was maybe 8 years old when I first met him. One of many children at the local shelter where I volunteered twice a week. The first day he refused to eat. Too proud to accept food labeled charity. I made him a sandwich and told him it was a special request just for him. He ate 3 more that week. Over time I learned his mother had died when he was young. His father was never around. Marcus was smart, quiet, always hungry for knowledge, for kindness, for something he could not name. On his last day at the shelter before he was moved to a foster home 2 towns away, he hugged me tight. One day he said, "I will tell the whole world how much you mattered." I had laughed softly. "Just tell them you had a good sandwich, dear." But now that boy was a man. And not just any man. He was a journalist for a major news network. The kind that exposes corruption and lies. I had followed his career quietly, saving every article he wrote. I had his phone number written on a piece of paper tucked inside my Bible. I had never used it. Till now. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. His voice was deeper than I remembered but warm. "This is Marcus." "Hello, sweetheart," I said gently. "Do you still like your sandwiches with mustard?" There was a pause. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Mrs. Helen. Oh my God. I have been looking for you for years. Are you okay?" "I am still breathing," I said. "But I need your help now. You say the word. Whatever you need." "I need the truth to be told," I said quietly. "About my daughter. About this house. About the lie she built and the silence she used to bury me." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You want to go public?" "No," I said. "I want the truth to go public. I do not need fame, Marcus. Just need air. My voice has been buried under other people's shame for too long." "Where do we start?" he asked. I opened the drawer fully. Inside were documents my daughter had refused to acknowledge. The house deed in my name. Property tax receipts. Bank transfer records proving I paid for everything. Medical bills I covered for Emma. Grocery receipts with my handwriting in the margins. I began taking pictures of each document with my old phone. Marcus stayed on the line waiting. "I have everything," I told him. "The evidence is clear. The timeline is solid. And there is one more thing." "What is that?" "Have her words. Every time she said something I knew I would never forget, I wrote it down. Every insult. Every lie. Every time she claimed she built everything herself." Marcus's voice cracked slightly. "You always kept the receipts, huh?" "I always kept the truth," I said. "I just did not know where to put it. Now I do." He cleared his throat. "This story. It is going to be messy. People will call it family drama. They will try to reduce it to something small." "Let them talk," I replied. "But make sure they hear me first." He paused, then said quietly, "You once told me to pay it forward. I never forgot that. Tonight I am paying it back. You are not a footnote in someone else's story, Mrs. Helen. You are the headline." I hung up and stared at the wall. For the first time in years I felt something I had almost forgotten. Not happiness. Not relief. Just a sense of being restored. Like I had found the version of myself I left behind in all those years of folding laundry and staying silent. Outside the wind picked up. The ocean hummed in the distance. Low and steady. I knew Marcus would not fail me. He had nothing to gain from helping me except giving back dignity. And dignity was the one thing no one had been able to steal from me. Not yet. The next morning my daughter came downstairs. She looked tired but tried to act cheerful. "Mother," she said sweetly. "Sorry about the pie thing last night. You know how people are. Always so dramatic." I looked up at her from my chair. "I know how people are," I said slowly. "Especially when they are pretending not to be something they really are." She tilted her head confused. "Are we okay?" Smiled. "Slow and careful. We will be." Because I had already set everything in motion. And this time I would not be quiet. This time the world would hear me. Even if it came from someone else's pen. The article appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was drinking my tea slowly with both hands wrapped around the cup. My phone buzzed once. Then twice. Then a dozen times in quick succession. I had not heard it ring that much in years. The screen lit up with messages from people I had not spoken to in decades. Old neighbors. Women from church. Former co-workers. The messages all said the same thing. Links and 2-word questions. "Is this true? Did you see this? She really said that." I did not click the link right away. I wanted to finish my tea first. By the time I opened the article, it had already been shared over 30,000 times. The headline read, "Self-made or self-fake? The truth behind Vanessa M. PR darling of the Northeast." The first paragraph was sharp. Marcus had a way with words. Strong but not cruel. He laid out her public image. Daughter of resilience. Woman of ambition. The face of modern success. a walking example of female empowerment. Then he introduced the real foundation of that image. Me. He detailed how I purchased the house in full, how it was still registered in my name. He included tax records, utility bills I had paid, transcripts of my daughter's speeches placed side by side with her private emails. Then the final blow. An internal email leaked from my daughter's company, one she had sent to her branding team 6 months earlier. We are not using any real family photos for the campaign. My mother does not have the look we want. Too plain. Too worn out. The brand needs polish. I have worked hard to erase that story. Let us not bring it back in the visuals. And another email even colder. I have built a career on image. If anyone knew my mom still lives in a basement bedroom folding laundry, the whole thing collapses. Keep that out of all interviews. The comments section exploded. Screenshots, reaction videos, posts on every social media platform. Articles with titles like "When Authenticity Backfires and the Cost of Erasing Your Roots." Within hours her name was trending everywhere. Someone found an old picture of my daughter and Emma at a charity event. Emma was holding a sign that read, "My grandma's hands built this world." It went viral. A quote from the article was posted beneath it. She lives in a basement she paid for herself while her daughter speaks of independence above her. The backlash was not cruel, but it was exact, precise. People were not angry that my daughter had help. They were angry she had buried the person who gave it. Brands started pulling back. A magazine cancelled her cover story. 2 major clients dropped her from upcoming campaigns. Her agent released a statement saying they were re-evaluating their professional relationship. And perhaps most brutal, her company issued an apology. Not for the article, but for allowing a culture of dishonesty to exist under leadership that failed to disclose key truths. She was suspended, pending further review. In business language that meant "you are finished. We just will not say it yet." Emma came into my room that night. She held her tablet tight against her chest. Her face was pale. "Grandma," she whispered. "Is it true? Mom said you were just visiting. That this was not really your house." I patted the spot next to me on the bed. She climbed in quietly. "I bought this house so your mother could raise you in peace," I said. "I did not need thanks. I just did not want her to be afraid." Emma was quiet for a while. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was her school essay. Title read, "The Strongest Woman I Know." I had not read it before. She had written about me. About how I made her lunch every day. How I sewed her Halloween costume by hand. How I taught her the difference between telling the truth and letting it die quietly. "I did not give it to her," Emma whispered. "She told me not to write about you." I held her then. Tighter than I had held anyone in years. Down the hallway I could hear my daughter pacing, slamming drawers, yelling into her phone. She was trying to fix the damage. To find anyone to blame. But this was not a smear campaign. It was a mirror. For years I had swallowed the shame she projected onto me. Wore it like a second skin. Kept quiet so her career could shine. But shame, when denied long enough, finds its own way to speak. And now it had. By midnight, even her closest friends had unfollowed her online. One influencer posted, "How can you preach empowerment when you silence the very woman who gave you life?" I did not smile. I did not celebrate. But I did sleep. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the entire night without waking once. No dreams. No regrets. Just the steady rhythm of a heart that finally had been heard. The storm was not over. But the silence had shifted. My daughter stopped speaking to me after the article went viral. She did not scream. Did not cry. Not to me anyway. She moved through the house like a ghost. Pacing. Texting. Cursing under her breath into her phone. She slept late. Drank wine early. Left dishes piled in the sink. But I did not clean up after her anymore. Not because I was angry. But because a different kind of cleaning had already begun. On Thursday morning the doorbell rang. My daughter rushed from the kitchen like she had been shocked awake. I stood at the edge of the hallway as she opened the door. A man in a dark suit stood there. Behind him was a younger woman with a laptop. "Richard," she said, forcing a smile. "You did not call ahead." He did not smile back. "We need to talk. Privately." My daughter's eyes flicked toward me. "Can we maybe go to the study?" He nodded and stepped inside. I caught a glimpse of his face. Strong features, tired eyes, but kind in a way that could not be faked. I remembered that face. It had been smaller once. Hungrier. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then the door to the study burst open. Richard stood in the doorway, stiff and serious. His assistant was still typing on her laptop behind him. My daughter followed, looking pale and frantic. "Richard, please," she said. "You cannot just walk away from me like this. From everything we have built together." Richard turned slowly. He looked past her, directly at me. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the whole house. "That is her," he said. "That is the woman. Mrs. Helen." My daughter spun around. "I was 10, he said, still looking at me. "I was living at the St. Andrew's shelter in Portland. One winter the staff forgot to give us lunch. We had not eaten since breakfast. I thought I was going to pass out." I remembered now. He was the boy who always sat alone, who never spoke unless someone spoke to him first. "She came that day," he continued, his voice rough with emotion, "with warm food, sandwiches wrapped in foil. She looked every one of us in the eye. No pity, no lectures, just kindness. That was the first time I felt like I mattered." My daughter shifted uncomfortably. "This is ridiculous. You are basing a business decision on a childhood memory." Richard ignored her. "She did not just feed us. She fed our dignity. And now you, her daughter, erase her. Rebrand her as a burden." My daughter stepped forward. "She has no education. No social skills. She folds laundry in a closet, for God's sake." Richard raised his hand. "You are trying to justify what cannot be defended. But this is business," she pleaded. "What happened to second chances?" Richard turned to his assistant. "Cancel all contracts. Effective immediately." My daughter gasped. "Richard." He faced her one last time. "A person who disowns someone like Mrs. Helen cannot represent the values we claim to stand for. The brand you built was always her reflection. You were just the lighting." He paused in the doorway and looked back at her. "You built your career on the back of someone you called invisible. That ends now." Then he walked toward me. Slower this time. When he reached me, he held out his hand. "I never forgot you," he said. "You saved me." I took his hand gently. "You saved yourself, sweetheart. I just handed you a sandwich." He smiled. "If you ever need anything at all, you call me. I owe you more than I can say." And with that he left. My daughter collapsed onto the stairs, speechless. That afternoon I took a walk to the bank. I had been preparing for this moment for months. The paperwork was already filed. The trust already created. All I needed to do was sign the final page. Emma's name now stood alone on the deed. The house was hers. The banker smiled politely. "We will notify the current occupants of the change in ownership." "No need," I said. "She already knows. She is just waiting for reality to catch up." When I returned home, my daughter was waiting, pacing near the front door. "You went to the bank," she said, her eyes wide. "They called me. They said the house is no longer in your name." I set my bag down calmly. "That is correct." "Why would you do that?" she shouted. "You are punishing me by giving everything to a child." "She is not a child," I said. "She is the only person in this house who still remembers how to be kind." My daughter's hands shook. "You cannot just throw me out. This is my home." "No," I said softly. "Never was. It was a gift you thought was yours to rewrite." She sank to the floor, her whole body trembling. "I am your daughter," she whispered. He nodded. "You are." "Then please," she begged. "Let me fix this. I will apologize. I will post it publicly. Just do not take everything away from me." I walked over and crouched beside her. Looked her in the eyes. "Do you remember what you called me during the party?" She froze. "You told a room full of strangers I was a burden." an embarrassment, that I should stay in the storage room. Tears slipped from her eyes. I stood up slowly. You wanted me invisible. Now I will be. But you will feel every inch of my absence. Emma stood quietly in the hallway watching everything. My daughter reached toward me, but I stepped back. The house is no longer mine to give or take, I said. It belongs to someone who knows the worth of a warm meal and a quiet hand. I walked away then, leaving my daughter on the floor sobbing into her palms. Not for what she lost, but for realizing it had never truly been hers to begin with. And that was the difference between inheritance and entitlement. One is earned. The other is assumed. She had assumed too much. 3 weeks after the article broke, the lawsuits began. My daughter had built her business not just on lies about her past, but on fake contracts, false testimonials, brand deals secured with dishonest financial records. When the truth started coming out, the paper trail followed. 2 of her biggest clients, major health and wellness companies, filed for breach of contract. They cited intentional misrepresentation of identity and values. Her public relations firm tried to protect itself at first. But as more evidence surfaced, they quietly released a statement. They confirmed internal violations and said they would cooperate with investigations. Just like that, the woman who once stood on stages talking about authenticity now sat at the back of a courtroom, waiting for a judge to read out damages she could not afford to pay. She tried to sell the house. Too late. It was no longer hers. Meanwhile, Emma, my sweet bright-eyed Emma, walked onto the stage of her middle school auditorium one afternoon. She was holding a piece of paper in both hands. She had been chosen to receive the Community Scholar Award. Not just for grades, but for character. Her essay had been submitted without my knowledge. It was published in the local newspaper alongside an article about the importance of family values. She cleared her throat and looked up at the audience. My grandma taught me that strength does not shout, she said clearly. Wait. It remembers. It builds in silence until it is time to be heard. When I was little, I thought heroes wore capes. But my hero bakes pies. She folds laundry. She tucks people in without asking for anything back. She gave away her credit, her comfort, her space. Also someone else could shine. Now I know better. Thank you, Grandma. You never asked to be recognized. You only asked that we live right. The applause was loud and long. But I did not cry. I just smiled and held her jacket while she bowed. A week later, Emma and I walked by the ocean. Her small hand in mine. The waves stretched forever. The way memories do when they refuse to let go. The sun was starting to set. The sand soft under our feet. This is where I used to give out soup, I told her, pointing to a patch of land near the old pier. On Tuesdays, hot potato soup with lentils if I had them. Most people did not say thank you. But that was never the point. Emma squinted at the horizon. What was the point? Smiled. To remind people that someone saw them. That they mattered. Even if just for the time it takes to finish a bowl. She nodded slowly. Thoughtful beyond her years. Now I continued. I give out something else. A lesson. Just one. About where kindness goes when it gets forgotten. She tilted her head. Where does it go? It waits, I said. Until it becomes truth. And truth does not disappear. Just waits its turn. She grinned. Just like you. We sat on the sand for a while. Watching the tide crawl in. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Later that night, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "Do you miss her?" Took me a moment to answer. I miss the idea of her, I said quietly. The little girl I once knew. But some people you cannot bring back. You can only bless them from far away. Emma held my hand tighter. I do not ever want to forget what you did. You will not, I said. You are the proof I did it right. In the weeks that followed, I stayed quiet. No interviews. No podcast. No media appearances. I declined every request. Let the world chase noise. I had earned the right to peace. One morning I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. But clearly from someone older. Mrs. Helen, it read. I used to think silence was weakness. But you have shown me its strength. You did not destroy your daughter. You revealed her. That is different. I am learning how to raise my own child now. With truth, not performance. Thank you for teaching me that some storms are not loud. They are precise. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the same red notebook where I once tracked every dollar I saved. Now it tracks something far more valuable. Dignity returned. On a rainy morning, I passed by the courthouse on my way to the market. I saw my daughter standing under an awning, alone, her umbrella broken in the wind. She caught my eye, took a step forward, but I did not stop. I only nodded once. Slowly. She did not follow. I was not cruel. I did not wish her harm. But she had built her fortune on forgetting me. Now she would learn to remember herself. The last words I ever said to her were not said in anger, but in finality. You once asked who I was. I had told her that day in front of everyone. You called me your shame. Now as I looked back one last time, I whispered into the wind. Some people repay kindness with gifts. Some repay it with silence. For me, I repaid it with the truth. And the truth always comes home. Months passed like pages turning in a book you cannot put down. My daughter's company officially let her go. No severance. No recommendation letter. Just a quiet exit and a non-disclosure agreement she had no choice but to sign. Her social media, which once had hundreds of thousands of followers, became a graveyard. Comments disabled. Posts deleted. The carefully curated image she had spent years building was gone in a matter of weeks. She moved out of the house without saying goodbye. One morning I woke up and her room was empty. Closet bare. Dresser drawers left open. She took only what fit in her car. Emma found a note on the kitchen counter. It was addressed to her. Not to me. I'm sorry, it read. I do not expect you to understand. But I hope one day you will. Emma crumpled the note and threw it away. She does not get to apologize to me and ignore you, she said, her voice shaking with anger. I pulled her close. Let her go, sweetheart. Some people need to fall all the way down before they can stand back up. Do you think she will ever come back? Emma asked. I do not know, I said honestly. But if she does, it will not be the same person who left. Emma nodded. Then she looked up at me with those bright, serious eyes. Grandma, she said, I am glad the house is mine. But I want you to know something. What is that? It is not really mine. It is ours. You and me. Forever. I smiled and kissed the top of her head. That is all I ever wanted, sweetheart. Place where we both belong. The house felt different after my daughter left. Lighter somehow. Like a weight had been lifted from the walls. Emma and I started new routines. We had breakfast together every morning at the big kitchen table. The one my daughter never let me sit at. We planted a garden in the backyard. Tomatoes, basil, sunflowers that grew taller than Emma by the end of summer. We baked pies every Sunday. Apple, cherry, peach. And we delivered them to the local shelter where I used to volunteer. Emma loved going with me. She would sit with the kids and tell them stories. Just like I used to do. One afternoon a little girl asked Emma, "Is that your grandma?" Emma smiled big and said, "Yes, and she is the best person I know." The little girl looked at me shyly. "Can you teach me how to make pie?" I crouched down to her level. "Course, sweetheart. But first let me teach you something more important." "What is that?" she asked. "How to be kind even when no one is watching." She tilted her head. "Why does that matter?" "Because," I said gently, "kindness is the only thing that lasts. Everything else fades away." The little girl thought about that for a moment. Then she hugged me tight. Emma watched with tears in her eyes. On the drive home she said, "Grandma, you are doing it again." "Doing what?" "Changing people's lives without even trying." I shook my head. "I am not changing anything. I am just reminding them of what is already there." One evening 6 months after everything happened, there was a knock at the door. Emma was upstairs doing homework. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I opened the door and froze. My daughter stood there, thinner than I remembered. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. Wearing jeans and an old sweater. She looked like the girl I used to know. Before the ambition. Before the lies. "Hello, Mother," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I did not say anything at first. Just looked at her. "I know I do not have the right to be here," she continued, her eyes red like she had been crying. "But I needed to see you. To tell you something." I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in the living room. The same room where she used to host those fancy parties. She looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. "Looks different," she said. "It is the same," I replied. "You are just seeing it differently now." She nodded and took a deep breath. "I lost everything," she said. "My job, my reputation, my friends, all of it." I stayed quiet, letting her speak. "And I deserved it," she continued, her voice breaking. "I treated you like you were nothing, like you were something to be ashamed of. But you were never the problem. It was." Tears started falling down her face. "I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even know if I can forgive myself. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I am sorry." She looked up at me. Really looked at me. "You gave me everything. And I threw it away because I was so obsessed with being someone I thought people would respect. But the only person worth respecting was right in front of me the whole time." I reached over and took her hand. "You were my daughter before all of this. And you are still my daughter now." A sob, covering her face with her free hand. "How can you even look at me?" she asked. "After everything I did." "'Cause," I said softly, "I know what it is like to lose yourself. And I know what it takes to find your way back." We sat there for a long time, just holding hands. Eventually Emma came downstairs. She stopped when she saw her mother. "Mom," she said, her voice uncertain. My daughter stood up, wiped her eyes. "Hi, baby," she said. Emma looked at me, then back at her mother. "Are you here to stay?" she asked. My daughter shook her head. "No, I do not live here anymore. This is Grandma's house." "And yours?" He paused, then added, "But I am here to start over, to try to be better. If you will let me." Emma walked over slowly, then hugged her mother. I watched them hold each other, both crying. And I realized something important. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It does not undo the hurt. But it does make space for something new to grow. My daughter started coming by once a week after that. First the visits were short, awkward, filled with long silences. But slowly things began to change. She helped Emma with her school projects. She joined us for Sunday dinners. She even came to the shelter with us one weekend and helped serve food. I watched her interact with the kids there. Gentle, patient, present. This was the daughter I always hoped she would become. One evening after Emma went to bed, my daughter and I sat on the back porch. The ocean was calm, the stars bright overhead. "I got a job," she said. "Nothing fancy. I'm working at a bookstore downtown. It does not pay much, but it is honest work." "I am proud of you," I said. She looked surprised. "You are." He nodded. "You are rebuilding your life the right way. With truth. With humility. That takes more courage than anything else." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think about that night all the time. The party. What I said to you in front of everyone." "I know," I replied. "How do you live with that?" she asked. "Knowing your own child treated you that way." I turned to look at her. "Because I never forgot who you were before you lost yourself. And I never stopped believing you could find your way back." Tears filled her eyes again. "I do not deserve your grace," she whispered. "None of us deserve grace," I said. "That is what makes it grace." She leaned her head on my shoulder just like she used to do when she was little. And we sat there together, mother and daughter, watching the waves roll in under the moonlight. A year passed. My daughter got her own small apartment across town. She continued working at the bookstore and started taking night classes at the community college. She was studying social work. She said she wanted to help people who felt invisible, the way she had made me feel. Emma thrived. She made honor roll, joined the debate team, started a kindness club at school where students volunteered at local shelters and food banks. She told everyone it was inspired by her grandmother. I continued my quiet life, baking, gardening, volunteering. But now I did it without shame. Without hiding. I did it as myself. Fully seen. Fully present. One afternoon I received a call from Marcus, the journalist who had written the article that changed everything. "Mrs. Helen," he said. "Have some news." "What is it?" "Your story. It is being adapted into a documentary. A major streaming service wants to tell it." I was silent for a moment. "Do I have to be in it?" I asked. "Only if you want to be," he said. "But either way your voice will be heard. Your truth will be told." Thought about it. Then said, "I will do it. But only if we can use it to help others. People who feel erased by their own families." "Already done," he said. "Part of the proceeds will go to a foundation. For grandparents raising grandchildren. And for people rebuilding their lives after family estrangement." Smiled. "And yes, let us do it." The documentary was released 6 months later. It was called The Woman in the Basement. Told my story. But it also told the stories of dozens of others like me. People who had been erased. Forgotten. Hidden away. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out. Sharing their own stories. Thanking me for speaking up. I read every message. Responded to as many as I could. One message in particular stood out. It was from a woman in her 50s. "My mother lived in my basement for 10 years," she wrote. "I told people she was just helping out. But the truth is I was ashamed of her. Your story made me realize what I had done. I called her today and apologized. We both cried. Thank you for giving me the courage to make things right." I saved that message. Printed it out. Put it in my red notebook next to all the others. 'Cause that was the whole point. Not revenge. Not fame. Just truth. And the healing that comes from speaking it out loud. Emma graduated middle school at the top of her class. At the ceremony she gave a speech as class representative. She spoke about resilience. About integrity. About the importance of honoring the people who sacrifice for us. And at the end she said, "I want to dedicate this achievement to my grandmother, the strongest woman I know, who taught me that real strength is not about being seen. It is about making sure others feel seen." The audience stood and applauded. I sat in the front row, tears streaming down my face. My daughter sat beside me. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You did that, Mom," she whispered. "You raised her right. And somehow, despite everything, you raised me too. You just had to wait for me to grow up." I looked at her. At the woman she was becoming. And I realized something. Some stories do not have neat endings. Some wounds take years to heal. Some relationships have to break completely before they can be rebuilt into something real. But that does not mean the story is over. Just means it is still being written. That night after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my room. The same small room where I had spent so many nights feeling invisible. But it did not feel small anymore. It felt like the room where I found my voice again. I opened my red notebook one last time. On the last page I wrote, "To whoever reads this in the years to come, know this, your voice matters. Your story matters. Do not let anyone make you believe otherwise. Not even the people you love most. Especially not them. Silence is not peace. It is just postponed pain. Speak your truth. Even if your voice shakes. Even if no one wants to hear it at first. Because somewhere someone is waiting for your story to give them permission to tell theirs. And that is how we heal. Not alone, but together." Close the notebook. Put it back in the drawer. And for the first time in many, many years I went to sleep feeling complete. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had finally said everything I needed to say. And that was enough. 5 years later, Emma graduated high school with a full scholarship to college. She decided to study journalism. She said she wanted to tell stories about people who get overlooked. I was not surprised. My daughter opened her own nonprofit. An organization that helped families navigate difficult conversations and heal from estrangement. She told me once, "I spent so many years running from where I came from. Now I spend every day helping other people find their way back." Me. Kept living. Simply. Quietly. But fully. I tended my garden. Baked my pies. Volunteered at the shelter. But now when people ask me about my life, I told them the truth. I told them about the house I bought, the daughter I raised, the silence I kept for too long. And I told them how I found my voice again. Not through anger, not through bitterness, but through the simple act of refusing to disappear. On my 75th birthday, Emma threw me a party. Not a fancy one, just family and close friends. People who had known me through everything. We ate pie, told stories, laughed until our sides hurt. At one point Emma stood up and raised her glass. To my grandmother, she said, who taught me that being ordinary is actually extraordinary. That folding laundry and making sandwiches and showing up quietly every single day is the most powerful thing you can do. Everyone raised their glasses. To Helen they said in unison. My daughter stood up next. To my mother she said, her voice thick with emotion, who loved me even when I did not deserve it. Who waited for me to come home even after I threw her out. Who showed me that grace is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. I am still learning how to be your daughter, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to make you proud. I stood up slowly, looked around the room at all the faces, and I said, I do not need you to make me proud. I just need you to be honest, to be kind, to remember where you came from, and to never let anyone tell you that your story does not matter. Because every story matters, even the quiet ones, especially the quiet ones. We all cried then, the good kind of crying, the kind that washes away old pain and makes room for new joy. Later that night, as I got ready for bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was lined with age, my hair completely white, my hands weathered from years of work. But my eyes were clear, and for the first time in a very long time I liked what I saw. Not because I looked different, but because I finally saw myself the way I deserved to be seen. As someone who mattered, as someone whose voice had power, as someone who had turned silence into strength. And that was the real victory. Not the article, not the documentary, not even the reconciliation with my daughter. The victory was this. I had reclaimed myself, and no one could ever take that away from me again.